Hello and welcome to the Halcyon podcast. On this episode, we're going to be talking about a slightly deeper set of conversations and underlying themes and tones and such. And I'm sorry my voice sounds like ass. For some reason, I'll not be able to get it back just yet. But originally, this was going to be released in version of a wrestling podcast first, and then a football podcast, and then and then. Recently, I've encountered a set of personal circumstances that I thought were worth touching on because it's something that I talk about with friends and family on a fairly regular basis, but I don't believe for one second I'm unique in this set of circumstances, and I wanted to kind of vocalize it and hopefully get a consensus on this, start a conversation about this because I find it cathartic to talk about this kind of thing. And the subject I wanted to touch on today is personal responsibility when it comes to social media, specifically when it comes to the relationships we have with people on social media and what it means to be both in a friendship, in a relationship with a family member or with a partner in today's age of easy disconnects and very relatively little obligation towards the person that you're supposed to be forming this emotional connection with. And I'm going to take people back to a time not so long ago where there was a time where the kind of emotional relationships you form with people on your street, they very seldom extended further than that. Even people who are grown up would probably have maybe a few friends that they knew outside of the region, but of course, because you're not seeing each other every day, there's a disconnect. Now, with social media, the advent of social media, there was a great surge for this ability to be able to maintain contact and good contact with people that are no longer around you. Maintain those relationships, maintain those friendships, and it was great. For a time, someone like me, for instance, who got introduced to something called MSN way back in the day, it was a godsend because it meant that people who I couldn't normally interact with on a regular basis, I could. But, and this is the crucial element here, you still maintain relationships and friendships with the people who are within touching distance of you because those are actual real relationships, tangible things. They're faces to people and you feel something towards that. You can't dehumanize something once you see them, and that's where I wanted to touch on today. I've recently been involved in a relationship of sorts, which has come to an end, unfortunately, due in no large part to the fact that there's a distance and there's a social media element. And my problem with it is not necessarily the relationship itself. The catharsis I would be talking about is the fact that back in the day, if you wanted to break up with somebody, you had to do it to their face. Now, while that sucked, at least then you had the knowledge that person at least took you seriously enough to say it to your face. And there was a trust element there, even in the breakup phase where you knew that even if something was going to happen, you had that courtesy. Now, and people who didn't were genuinely considered to be pretty cowardly. Now, these days that's no longer the case, and case in point, it was over a message. Now, again, people will probably feel differently to this than I do, but I'm a believer in people. I think you should always treat people with respect and dignity. Even if you don't like them, people are entitled to be treated with respect. In certain circumstances, of course, you can choose to take that respect away, but you've got to do it in the right way. Cutting people out of your life is the easy thing to do these days. I mean, how many people, hand on heart, who would listen to this podcast have not blocked somebody on Facebook? It's just simply, just done it. And you're tough, not even allowed them the courtesy of a fire back, of a fuck you, no fuck you. And I think that's being lost in today's day and age. Confrontation is something that's either accepted or walked away from. It's never worked through. And my point to this is that I fear we're living in an age now where the disposability of relationships is reaching an apex, where literally any relationship can be interchanged with another almost instantaneously, and that devalues people. It means people trust people even less than they do. And that worries me because as a person who likes to invest their emotion and trust in people, to believe in the betterment of people as they progress through their lives, to get invested in people, to take pride and joy in their successes and be there to lament with them when they fail, that era seems to be passing where someone like me can form a tangible relationship and not have it become a trust issue whereby if I get too involved, you just don't know the person's motivations. You don't know what they're thinking day in and day out, because people wake up different people every day. And I guess the point I wanted to make with this podcast today, I wanted to try and keep it quite brief, because I don't want to be bitter about the situation, but it's something that's happened to me in the past, and that's the reason for me invoking it and me trying to obtain a bit of catharsis by talking about it. Is I wanted to make a plea to people, and that is, if you've got people in your life on social media, on in and around you, your work colleagues, your friends, your family, your milkman, whatever it is, place more emphasis on that than on the goddamn phone you're listening to this on. For the love of all that's holy, do that. If people start investing in trusting beyond the realm of social media again, I think it would be something that everyone would ultimately benefit from. If people stopped taking pictures of the damn things that they were at to prove that they were at them, and started enjoying being there and making memories with the people they're with just a bit more, I think you'd see a turnaround in attitude. You'd see a turnaround in this inherent disposability of relationships that people seem to be quite okay with when it comes to them, but everyone's been on the end of one of those. And who among us can't put their hands on the heart and say it isn't one of the most demoralizing, confidence-sucking experiences to have someone simply walk away without a trace. It's not something I'm ever going to get used to. And that's the point. Sorry, that's a point I also wanted to raise, is that yes, we live in this age, and maybe nothing will change. Maybe we'll just simply slip into a state where we just literally all message each other all the time and just sharing statuses and all the rest of that sort of rubbish. But I'm still very much a person who would rather pick up the phone, have a conversation for 10 minutes or talk your ear off for half an hour than message incessantly and never actually form a connection. Not with everybody, of course, but by the same token, I think it's important that people remember that people are people. Invest and trust in them, and hopefully they will invest and trust in you. And it only works if everyone gets on board with that. If no one does, then guess what? Everyone goes around getting hurt, everyone gets around. And yes, I'm talking from a position of being a bit sore. Rest assured, ladies and gentlemen, people who know me have been through this probably a dozen times by now, so it's one of those things we just have to bear with me on this. But I wanted to raise this as a great point, because from personal experience, it seems to be getting worse. And I can't quite buy that I'm unique in this experience. And people who may be going through this as well, who again equally have very little grasp on why this is, then I would invite you to do the same. Don't close off to the world, because the world is not a group of individuals. Always remain open to the possibilities. Always remain open to the possibility that you can develop as a person by investing in other people, and know that their successes can be your successes. Your successes can be their successes. And I guess that's by and large the point I wanted to make in my own weird and wonderful way. Hypocritically though, I'm going to be reviewing something very, very soon that I think some people will have at least a remote interest in. So stay tuned for that. Thanks a lot for listening to this particular Halcyon podcast. This will be uploaded in tandem with 2 others. So if you don't fancy listening to me ramble on about how I got dumped, then absolutely you've got some content coming your way. As always, I really appreciate you listening. If you took the time to listen, please like, share, and subscribe. Comment as well. I'd like to get a discussion started on this. If anyone thinks I'm full of then I would really prefer you put a message so I can have an argument with you, or post a video response. This is something I'm quite interested to see if people would be willing to do. Pop a video response, a video reply of some description. Let's get a YouTube banter war going or something like that. I don't know. Anyways, thanks a lot for listening again. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you on the next Halcyon show.